Oh, I was waiting on DiNardo to accidentally open that up here. But he won't.
What?
I am the host here. So I guess I'll give you a yo. Welcome to another edition of NS9 Idol. We got Connor and we got some new guy that apparently wants to be on the show. I think his name's like
DiNardo? Something like that.
You probably wish it was Ron Alexander.
Always. We're always hoping for the comeback. Anyhow, This is the last edition of it, guys. We are almost done with the Idol.
Cool. This is like not relevant to the show right now at all, but I feel very short. I don't know why. Is my mic or my video different? Like, why am I this low? I feel like a little kid on this stream.
Kind of got to move the camera down, and usually that.
Yeah, but like looking at it, like my albums line up where it normally is. I don't know. Anyways, we can move forward. I just feel very short.
All right, moving it on. Connor, what's going on today, my friend?
I don't know. Your previous two conversations about potato wedges and is DiNardo short or not have like totally blasted everything that was in my mind out of it. So I'm doing good though.
JoJo's Earth thing. I will not take any slander on JoJo's. They are real. They are a variation of a potato wedge. If you think otherwise, you are purely wrong. Wikipedia says that JoJo's are a thing. DiNardo, what do you want?
He wants platform. Really right now, he wants platform shoes. That's what he wants.
I do. I don't know why. This stuff like this irritates me. Anyways, JoJo's aren't a thing, and I don't understand it. It's a potato wedge. Like,
no, that's fine. That's valid. I'd never heard of them before. That's valid.
You know why you never heard of it before?
Are you gonna say because they're not a thing?
Correct. Simple answer.
Okay, but a hot dog is a sandwich, and it's also a variation of it. A JoJo's the potato wedge, and it's a variation of it.
All right, let's not like try to bolster one controversial thing by bringing in something even more controversial as your supporting evidence.
Yeah, but a hot dog is a sandwich.
All this time, I thought we were replacing Jim. Turns out.
It's Tyler.
It's Tyler.
It's Tyler.
Cool. So I get to leave?
Oh, you wish.
I was calling it a day. All right, hot dog sandwich. JoJo's are a variation of a potato wedge. Anyhow, DiNardo, how's your lovely day going, buddy?
Not bad.
This is just a shit show of an episode because we got two regular cast or co-hosts on it and Connor, who has been on like every space we ever did.
Unfortunately.
And Connor's playing with lighting over there. DiNardo's trying to figure out why he looks so short. What the hell is going on here, people?
Sorry. I was switching tabs and I only have one monitor at the moment for technical reasons.
This is off the rails.
It's already off the rails. You guys want to talk about the Pirates?
Yeah.
Hey, finally someone acts like a host around here.
All right, at any rate, we were supposed to bring a topic apiece here today, and since you two are competing against each other to be on the show,
I'll go first.
Connor, you want to go first with it? I want to hear your topic of the day.
I actually have, my first one is if they move on from Reynolds, if they seriously intend to compete in 2024, which they should, where's the playoff level outfield production coming from? Because at the moment, that's externally. It would have to be either acquired in free agency or via trade because it's just not there, in my opinion. Which is probably the biggest argument piece for keeping Reynolds in the first place. Or, just literally having done anything instead of waiting this long. Miguel Andujar. Thank you, Jim. That's very insightful.
DiNardo, a rebuttal?
Is there a rebuttal?
No, to be honest, like my 2 cents here, I don't think there is a rebuttal because we don't have the answer. We don't have the answer to that because the answer is not internal, like Connor said.
Yeah, that's concerning. So it's concerning to me that they're struggling to figure this out when at least I would hope they're not so stupid and blind that they can't see that they're going to have to, that either something wild's going to have to happen for an internal option or they're going to have to add externally. And we've already been talking about, oh, well, if they trade Reynolds, we need to get top of the line starting pitching. Well, if you get you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I wish they had just figured this out.
I look at it this way, to be honest. Like, there's nothing internally, but there's still a path that can lead to, air quotes, competing. I'm going to say it very loosely because I think even with Brian Reynolds, they're loosely competing next year, right? I think it's more like competitive to maybe be in the hunt, but 2025 is probably closer to the year of like actually competing.
Right.
So if they trade Reynolds, I think what you're doing for one is you're probably hoping that Bay is an answer at center field. You're probably hoping that he does hit, figuratively speaking, right? And literally. But also you're hoping that he can play the position. And it's not as if Brian Reynolds played it that well last year. Now, granted, I don't think he's that bad as he was last year. He's
more of a corner guy long term, and we've known that.
Sure, but regardless, he can play the position. It's not like he needs to move. Right. There's a reason why there's a market for him as a center fielder. So you're hoping that Bay not going to live up to what Brian Reynolds is, but can play the position and be what Bay is. You're probably hoping internal improvements around O'Neill Cruz to maybe become that guy. Like if you're losing Reynolds, hopefully Cruz becomes your Reynolds, right? He's that guy. He's the dude now. Hoping Endy improves. Henry Davis comes up. Like you're hoping these guys hit. And in that way, what you can do is you can utilize money, legal tender to give it to people who actually play those positions that you might lack in, right? Like when you look at a rebuild, you fill in gaps with free agency. If your gaps are the corners, well, guess what? That's also a good thing because you can kind of find corner power guys fairly cheap on the free agent market. So again, if you're talking like if there's a path without Brian Reynolds, I think there absolutely is one.
There absolutely is a path without Reynolds. It's just it's like we talked about this the other day where it's like, do we trust this team enough yet that they'd actually do that? That's what concerns me.
And like we're still saying, like things have to hit for it to happen, but it is a path that exists.
It is a path that exists. Yeah.
Just my 2 cents here. They could just not trade Reynolds and have that production from the outfield and spend the money on those holes elsewhere. I think that is your best
I would agree.
Forward here. Is it the path they're going to take? I don't know. I don't think a trade with Reynolds happens this year. I think we're looking more next year in the offseason. It's a possibility. Or even at the deadline this year, maybe if a team has a closer to Major League ready, some starting pitching that's closer to Major League ready at the deadline this year, it's more possible. I don't see it this offseason. And I really don't think it should happen for at least another couple years if they're going to do so. There's just no reason. And DiNardo's still short.
Yep.
Cool.
The other thing that happened today, Zach Thompson got DFA'd.
Yes, he did.
And in other news, why are people upset that Zach Thompson got DFA'd?
You know what? Before we get into that, DiNardo, did you bring a topic today?
I did.
Maybe just share. Yeah, you can go ahead and just share your topic real quick.
Well, this kind of goes into the whole Zach Thompson thing. I figured it's kind of topical. It's not solely about Zach Thompson. To answer your question, why is anyone pissed off?
It was rhetorical, mostly.
Well, regardless, though, if anyone's mad that he was DFA'd because he was DFA'd, there's no reason to. This team needs to get better than Zach Thompson.
Exactly.
If they're mad because he represents part of the return with Jacob Stallings, and a year later, part of that return is being DFA'd, that I can partially understand. Yes, you have to move on from Zach Thompson. Yes, he stinks. And it's a good day today because the Pirates are less Zach Thompson and Bryce Wilson.
Yep.
But my topic kind of correlates with that because I'm bringing up the Jacob Stallings things because this is exactly why I'm still, that trade just sucked. And again, Zach Thompson being gone is good, but he was part of that return. And it's why I never understood the return to begin with. And I understand that this year, or this past year, I should say now, Jacob Stallings wasn't good. And I get that. I understand that. But to me, that's completely irrelevant. Jacob Stallings was traded. He was a good catcher. It wasn't great, but he was a good, solid catcher. The catching in baseball right now is so weak as it is. That's an asset. He was positive. He was good. They traded him for a guy who was a minor league free agent, Zach Thompson, who pitched lights out for 2 starts with Miami and loaded up all those strikeouts, and it was kind of figured out and was solid for the rest of his 60 innings pitching. But you just seen this happening, and it did. So he wasn't anything good of return. Connor Scott is a busted first-round draft pick who also was terrible with the Pirates. Like, everything hangs on Kyle Nicholas, who screams reliever from day one and still screams reliever today. And you traded a good catcher for a reliever prospect. Never understood trade that day was made. So, like, I'm not looking at it today in the lenses of Zach Thompson was DFA'd. Now the trade's bad. For all the people that are saying the Jacob Stallings trade is now taking the L and people attacking them,
it already took the L.
That's the problem with this. That's my stance was it took the L day one.
Yeah.
Like, the way I'm going to correlate this is if I traded my Mac right now for a pencil and piece of paper, I'm looked at as an idiot. Why the hell would you do that? And it just so happens that 6 months down the road, the Mac I gave you broke. I'm not going to like chant and scream like, ha, look at you, you idiot. Your Mac broke. I won. Like, no, like, it was just unfortunate your Mac broke. It was not expected to break, but it broke. But I'm not going to be like jumping up down. People are going to praise me like, oh man, you're so smart. No, it was just unfortunate the Mac broke, but I'm still the idiot who traded my MacBook for a pen and paper. And like, that's what this represented. The trade was just another one of Ben Cherington's, I don't really get this. And here we are today.
Because if they really just needed a guy to pitch, they could have signed somebody other than Thompson.
I should have opened up a pocketbook.
So I think the interesting part of this is it's pretty obvious that they traded Stallings at his peak value. And it's a weird similarity to what we saw with Huntington and the pitchers, where he was trading these guys at their lowest value and getting very poor returns. In this case, Ben Cherington traded Jacob Stallings at his highest value and still got a shit return.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see Joe Musgrove improvement incoming. You could see Garrett Cole improvement incoming. They traded him at the lowest value, got very little. I guess Garrett Cole did get Joe Musgrove, but we'll forget about that for a minute.
I mean, you can argue the Musgrove wasn't at his lowest value, but
it wasn't great.
It was at a time
they could have held on to it.
Yeah, the value was coming,
right?
And a lot of people could see it. Obviously, the Padres are one of them.
Unfortunately, they were. So DiNardo's big topic of the day was revisiting a trade that happened last offseason for a catcher that was absolutely terrible this year.
Man, it's January in baseball. It's January in Pirates baseball.
But to go back to the Stallings trade, I'm a lot less frustrated with it at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can really get on my high horse and rip
one
anecdote
anecdote that I will add to that while we're on it is that trade was bad, but I've seen people complain about Richard Rodriguez for Bryce Wilson, to which, like, what are you smoking? Like, that was trash for trash. Straight up. I don't understand what people's complaint ever has been about that. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to assume the entire league knew that Richard Rodriguez was using sticky stuff. I mean, it was pretty obvious because the second that came in, the spin rates immediately dropped, and he immediately had that really poor month. And then he was traded. There was no universe in which you were ever getting anything for that. Never. No.
Yeah, like I'm not that hard pressed on that one either. I don't know. Like I felt like with the market, you probably could have done better than a Bryce Harper or Bryce Harper. Jeez, no, give me Bryce Harper. Bryce Wilson.
I wish.
I think what got me it was kind of like the Chavis thing too. Although again, like, but God, who was
there's a lot of irrelevant
Austin
trades
Bryce
go down right now.
Austin Bryce for Chavis. Like the thing about that, like the Wilson represented was it was just like those trades I would have just rather had like a single A ticket for, because his team was already loaded with like 40-man roster crunches and and like those guys just like maybe there's something there you get out of them, and again, like it's not like Austin Bryce or Rich Rodriguez were like big time players in a return, but
yeah,
I guess I just rather have like a lottery ticket type of prospect in return, if that makes sense. But yeah, like I'm not going back to the Rich Rod trade at all.
Yeah. No, it's just in the past couple days I've seen people mention that trade was a failure, and I question the logic behind it. Is all.
Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, what is important is that in the moment is that Zach Thompson, who is bad, is no longer on a baseball team that we care about
yet.
I mean, I'll sure, because I agree. He's going to get – there'll be another Bryce Wilson type of trade. Like, he's going to get picked up on a team for some cash considerations, and someone
I'm
that's
sure.
really, really, really bad is going to have an innings eater for some cash instead of, an actual usable catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are a couple trades I'm just not getting up in arms about anymore. I will say
Austin Davis. Yes, my bad.
Yes, I was very confused why we were talking about Austin Bryce, but I couldn't think of Austin Davis's last name for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I am very happy that
hodgepodge of nothingness.
We do not have to deal with Zach Thompson getting a spot start or Zach Thompson being in the bullpen and taking away a spot from some guy that can actually throw 95 plus. So I'm okay that he's gone.
We signed Vince Velasquez, right?
I don't need 4 Vince Velasquez on this team.
I mean, I understand that. And you're correct. You can't have there's only so many Vince Velasquez, Zach Thompson, Bryce Wilsons you can have on your roster. You can't have
I don't know. They had about 17 of them last year.
True.
Any roster that's not just a bunch of guys.
They sure do have a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on that trade there, DiNardo?
And the difference was last year is that those guys actually did it at one point were slotted into the rotation. It wasn't just like a presumptive long relief swingman guy, which is presumably what Velasquez is at the moment. So it is a little different in that respect.
I mean, again, if you want to look at his roster, the roster is improving.
It is better.
Like, you can't deny that, right? Like, there are some competent players on this team.
We went from a historically bad first base situation to one that's like fairly competent.
Right. That's all you can really ask for at this point in time.
It is.
That's really what we were just asking for last year. Sadly.
And the year before.
So we've finally reached that level. So, right. I mean, the less Bryce Wilsons and Zach Thompson you have on the team, the better. So, again, today was a win.
Austin Bryce
Small
Wilson.
win, but it was a win.
Cool.
I'm done with the trade. We can move.
All right. Yeah. Just a little bit of inside baseball house sausage just made here. I got a text about 10 minutes before this podcast from DiNardo for the 14th time of him saying, I don't have a topic tonight. Tyler, what's your topic tonight? Ty, what's your topic tonight? I don't have a topic tonight. Screw it. I'm going to talk about the Jacob Stallings trade. And that came through about 8:53.
Yeah.
So there's a little inside baseball for you guys. Behind the scenes of NS9 Idol.
But for real, like, let's go. I'm tired of talking Brian Reynolds.
Listen, and what did Connor do? The first topic he comes up with.
Well, what do you want me to do? Do you have any ideas?
No, that's what I'm talking about last year.
Exactly, Tyler, you?
I brought a topic.
JoJo's, right?
No. JoJo's are a thing. We don't need to get down this rabbit hole. All right, so as the host, someone who takes this job very seriously, unlike our actual host, I did bring a topic here. Since Connor went first on his topic, I'm going to throw the mic to you here, DiNardo. Here's my question for the night, and we're going to get a little bit into predictions. It is now January 5th. Obviously, not all moves are made for the offseason. But sitting here right now with what the Pirates already have, who is the Pirates' most valuable major league pitcher next year in 2023?
So I guess, like, how do you want to look at that? Who's going to have the most WAR?
No, I mean, I would jump off the bat and say that Rich Hill has already been the most valuable because he got his Dallas Braden.
He's the most valuable NS9 pitcher.
Correct. So for me, he's my most valuable. But if we're looking in terms of the Pirates, we'll just say who will be the best pitcher for the Pirates in 2023.
So, and this kind of goes with what I was saying. So, like, best pitcher, because WAR, obviously, innings matter. So, like, are we looking at the end of the year, like, who has the highest WAR, or like just like the best performance, but they might only pitch 120 innings?
So I think the interesting part there is it depends on how you look at pitching stats.
So it's like Cy Young.
Personally, I don't like WAR. You looking at pitchers. I don't like Fangraph's version of WAR.
Is it going to be Zach Wheeler or Corbin Burns? Is like what we're talking about right now, right?
I'm talking about who will be the Pirates' best pitcher in
It's Mitch Keller, since DiNardo won't fucking answer.
So the reason I say that, and here's why, because I could say Rowensy, but he's not going to get the innings. So like you could argue then Mitch Keller because he'll get innings, but I don't think he'll be as crisp and maybe as like, wow, look at this pitcher. Like Rowensy's looking good, but hey, he only pitched 120 innings. Mitch Keller logged 180. Mitch Keller is the most valuable in that sense because the body of work. But like Rowensy ends up probably looking like the best pitcher. That's why I say that. And that's where I'm at. I liked where Mitch Keller went. I think he's going to be a good pitcher. I still am a bit fearful of, with the new rules in this shift, what he does this year. Like I'm heading in with some caution. Again, not like he's going to turn into a bad pitcher, but have some caution. Is he going to replicate last year? Is he going to really take the next step? He could take the next step, but also end up exactly where he was this year.
Right.
By his peripherals and such, right? But like with Rowensy, I'm kind of going because the talent. I think I like the talent. He still certainly has things to work on too, but like he does have swinging stuff miss. Mitch Keller, not as much, oddly enough.
Swinging stuff miss.
Yeah. That's why he's so valuable, man. The people are swinging before the stuff even comes. So I think Rowensy will be the better pitcher at the end of the year, but you can argue as far as value. You might say Mitch Keller is the most valuable because the innings he logs in, and it's not that far of a draw. So I didn't answer your question. Is also what just happened right now.
But I mean, he asked you, and I answered before you did.
Correct, because you kept arguing about how we're going to judge value.
Well, that's why.
And I do think that is...
And my answer explains it, though.
So I do think that is interesting on how we judge pitchers, though. You do look at a lot of people... I mean, old school guys are still going to look at wins. A lot of people are just going to look at ERA. A lot of people are just going to look at Fangraphs WAR. Some others will look at like RA WAR. There's a lot of different ways to look at production in Major League pitching. Personally, I'll just look at ERA and innings and go from there. I don't need to see what their FIP is, how it's calculated into a WAR for some hypothetical number that's not really real results and somehow we came up with some value on it. No, just give me regular baseball numbers.
I'll say this: if you are talking WAR, I know we like cite Fangraphs a lot and stuff, but like when it comes to any year, like I'm talking Cy Young stuff like that, like I prefer Baseball Reference WAR over Fangraphs. Like I don't like to look into FIP when it comes to like Cy Young stuff. I need what are the actual results in that sense.
I'm actually I am completely with you on that.
Yeah, no, I'm there with you.
So you're also on the Mitch Keller train here, Connor.
No.
Who you think will be the best?
Somebody in chat said Oviedo. Anthony said Oviedo. I'm not so sure about that one.
So I think that could be potentially an interesting answer if he is in more of a Will Crow type of role that they used him in last year.
I think he's definitely going to start the year as a starter. Whether he ends there is questionable. I don't think they pick him up, put him in that starting role towards the end of the year just to like roll into spring training and be like, all right, Vince Velasquez is starting to start the year. That doesn't make any sense to me. The Pirates do a lot of things that don't make sense. So, but I mean, I would wager to say the rotation as it stands is probably Keller, Hill, Contreras, Brubaker, Oviedo, with Velasquez coming out of the pen as a swingman or a spot starter, as it stands right now.
It could be. I think what I do like, and again, this year, what presents is like there's certainly options, and people are going to have to like earn it. So Oviedo is going to have to earn it. I think that's why Vince Velasquez is there, especially with the Rich Hill signing.
I would agree with that. If Oviedo stinks it up, they're going to go to Velasquez pretty quickly. And I mean, that could even apply to like spring training. If we're going in spring training and it's like, it's clear Oviedo's, he's not that guy, then I think that's why Velasquez is there. And probably why they feel comfortable getting rid of those other two guys who shall not be mentioned again.
Until next January, we'll want to bring up the Stallings trade again.
Yeah, when we run out of things to talk about again. Well, see, we just needed to wait and hold this until the Pirates announced the Correa signing, really, is what we should have done. They're the mystery team, clearly.
So I'm sitting here trying to think about the rotation, and I still do feel like I feel like Oviedo will be in the pen. I
think it's where he ends up.
I don't see that they sign Velasquez and don't put him in the rotation. I don't see why he signs here if he's not going to be.
Well,
nobody else would give him the 3.5 million we gave him.
And I also don't know why they would pay him $3.5 million if they weren't going to throw him in the rotation. This team's not in the business of burning 3.5 on a reliever.
I side more.
Have you seen the reliever market?
This team's not in the business of burning any money on relievers.
What do you mean burning? What's payroll at right now? 70 million?
That doesn't matter.
I know
was it? Like 1.5 million they spent last year on Hembry. Like that was the big reliever acquisition. Yeah. So
they acquire relievers by trading position players. That's how we do it around here.
You're not wrong.
No, like I'll say this though, like I side with Tyler, and I think his point of view, Velasquez, like, hey, here's $3 million. There's not too many teams that probably offer me that. There's not too many teams that are going to offer me a opportunity to be in the rotation. I don't think it's pencil. I should say it's not in pen. That pen that I traded away, it was not used to put him in the rotation, but he has an opportunity and a path to be able to potentially be there. And there's not many teams that offer that. So, like on his point of view, here's $3 million, and here's an opportunity to maybe be starter, but it's not guaranteed. And I think that's what the Pirates point of view is too.
If that's where
I think he has the inside track, but they're probably hoping someone steps up and beats him out.
Yeah, they're hoping that they're okay with Oviedo out of camp and not Velasquez. And I would understand that. That would make sense. I would still gander to say that I think Oviedo is at least going to beat out Velasquez. I'm not sure that Oviedo is really a starter by the end of the year, regardless. But I still would anticipate that he would beat out Velasquez for that 5th spot. I still think I think Oviedo would really, really have to stink it up in spring. I think he really, really would.
I think it might actually end up being a true competition where the two guys actually compete. Not a Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph competition where Mitch Trubisky is the starter and we're just going to pretend it's a competition. This might actually be a competition for that 5th spot. I think you can also maybe throw Luis Ortiz into that mix. I don't see him.
No.
I don't see him starting the year with the club.
No, he's not. He won't.
I would prefer to see him start the year with the club over both those guys.
I would agree.
Oviedo to me is a reliever.
Ortiz is the only guy that I could see you making an argument for not starting because I would agree that I think Priester should be here. I think Burrows should be here. I think of the 3, Burrows, Priester, and Ortiz is the only one that I'd be like, yeah, if you want to start him in AAA to start the year, I understand. That's the only one of the, but I'd still prefer him to be here because I want to see him. But because here's the thing: if they stink, you can just send him back down.
Right. No, I mean that's very fair.
DiNardo, I could tell you have something that you want to say.
No, not really. Like I'm thinking, I'm actually okay with Priester not starting opening day, if that makes sense. To me, I feel like he's probably a guy that could benefit, and Burrows. I guess when it comes down to like the 2 pitching prospects, I'm more okay if they're not there. Now, granted, I mean, if they're like lights out this spring or whatever, you know what I mean? Like if they're proving something at that point in time, there's something to argue about. But like before seeing it, you know, like I'm okay with that. It's not like the Cruz situation last year for me. It's not even like the Endy situation heading into this year. You know, Henry Davis, I'm perfectly okay with not. Roansy, that's the perfect one too. Yeah, as far as pitchers, like Roansy deserved to be there on opening day last year.
And we got Zach Thompson.
He got there by default eventually, and then they got to work the surface time around. But you're right, like that's the thing too. Like you can start people, and if they're good, well then there's incentive for you to keep them there because you can get a draft pick, and they get compensated, and you build a culture. And I don't know, you have happy employees. But if they're not good, then you also win because you can play service time. Well, they're not good, so we have a reason to send you down for 60 days. So like to me, it's a win-win to starting these guys. But again, like with Quinn Priester and Burrows, I'm okay with. Endy, I want to hear day 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Henry spent a lot of time hurt last year, and wrist injuries especially concern me. And not in terms of like long-term viability as a player, but in terms of just like I've seen a lot of players talk about how long wrist injuries take before it feels normal again. I think it was Adam Jones. Adam Jones talked about coming back from some sort of major wrist injury. And he was like a full year after I was cleared to play. It still hurt to swing a bat.
Yeah.
So
that's like fairly common.
Yeah. So I would actually prefer Davis to start in the minors, which is why I think it's good that he will. And for one, I don't think he's ready in the same sense that Endy is regardless. I mean, maybe that'd be a little different if he wasn't injured last year, but
I mean, we're seeing that with Brian Hayes right now on the wrist as well.
Right, exactly.
That's a good point.
And I'm completely with you on Henry Davis being in the minors. There's a lot of work that needs done from what we've heard defensively.
Work needs done.
You really probably want to split him and Endy up so that they can both actually catch almost every day, which pushes me more towards Endy really needs to be here.
I would agree with that because I would prefer if Henry would be at the highest level he could be at.
Right.
And because I totally believe that Endy is ready until he proves that he's not. That's why he needs to be here. I mean, it really isn't rocket science, but they'd rather save a dime when the obvious answer could be, well, if he's good, just pay him.
Yep, I'm with you. I don't need to go too deep on Endy. We've said our piece, and we'll have many more opportunities to say it here in the future. But he should. I'm tired of this game, especially when your organization has come out and said how after AA you're ready. He saw AAA. Like, I want to have these players given the opportunity and chance to show what they got. Prove me you can play. Here is your chance. Go show me what you got.
Right.
Have faith in your players. That's a big boost. Like have faith. You're starting opening day 1. Here you go, kid. Go get rookie of the year. I mean, like, what a boost of confidence coming from your organization to tell you that.
And
Let's
for
do it.
Shelton
And
to have
if you
already
fail, then you go back down the minors and you can understand.
I think it's even worse that Shelton already said that he expects those guys to start. That's kind of to start in the minors. I mean, that's a little embarrassing. I think that's mishandling that pretty badly. Like, if we're just openly saying it, like, I can't. I don't really know what to say. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see when time comes, but I have a very, very good feeling he'll be in AAA. But regardless, we can move forward from ND.
Now that Rich Hill is here, there is like one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and I do, for the most part, like what they've done in free agency. Well, and also I guess in the trade market, I have to, as an overall thing, maybe not exclusively free agency, because this team isn't, 1, 2, or even 3 good players away from being a real competitor. So guys like Carlos Santana and Rich Hill make a lot of sense. They're stable. I mean, we're not putting Josh Van Meter out there, really. There's no Kevin Padlow. There's no Yu Chang. I mean, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but really it's that this should have been done last year, but that it's been done makes me happy.
That's just where I'm at. I don't look at this offseason and just think like it's a failure, right? And I don't look at the signings and say, well, Rich Hill's 43 years old. This is terrible. And Carlos Santana is coming off, more of a down year. And like, I'm not looking at the negatives. There's a lot of positive. Like, these are the type of players this team needs, this organization needs.
Right. And it's not like the Littlefield thing where it's like these guys are being brought in to help compete now. That's not what's happening.
Right. Like I'll say this, and I'm with you too. Like, this should have been done last year. Like, the thing is,
correct.
This should have already been in place. And that way, maybe this year was, let's not just settle for these type of guys. Let's maybe, I guess in that sense, like the Reggie Jackson, like maybe let's get someone who knows, but maybe it's a little bit better too. Like, maybe they can start pushing this team to start getting some W's as well. Because again,
what about Reggie Jackson? Reggie Sanders? What's happening?
So terrible. Yeah. Reggie Sanders, not Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, no, you said
Reggie Jackson might be the answer for the corner outfielder you spoke on earlier in the show.
You said Reggie Jackson, and like my brain short circuited out, and I didn't want to interrupt.
I was like, was I just not paying attention there? We were talking about like the 80s Yankees.
Listen, we all know I'm terrible with names.
He played in the 80s, didn't he? Or was it the 70s?
But anyways, what I want to say is,
by the way, Reggie Sanders had 31 home runs for the Pirates. If you didn't know that,
that was a great year. Yes, he was awesome.
I think he hit
but like, it would be good to get some W's, right? Not all the L's, because you have a guy like Brian Reynolds who now wants to leave. And maybe if this was done last year, he had some competency around him, and this year you're getting some better players, right? Not just like a Choi and stuff. Maybe Brian Reynolds doesn't ask for a trade. Like, that's just where I'm at.
Let's
again, like, this offseason wasn't a big
L.
but
I mean, I just said that Reggie Sanders hit 31 home runs and hit 285, and I was completely correct.
I mean, you are like an all-the-Mac. I don't get it.
Just wanted to point out that I'm good. And I remember his real name.
Do you know Reggie Jackson's numbers, though?
No. He's not a Pirate.
Do you?
Loser. No. Because clearly I think he's a Pirate in the early 2000s.
So, yeah, back to what Connor was saying about the offseason. As polite and positive as I can put it, for my Pirates fandom at this point. I have not hated the offseason.
Right.
That's as nice as I can be. I haven't
But
hated
it is the bare minimum. Like, this is what they had to do. We're just finally praising them for doing what they should have done.
It
like,
got
that's
to the
where we're
point
at.
where they were pushed off of the cliff to do it.
Like, I'm Lizzo right now. It's about damn time.
It is about damn time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they really should have been doing this earlier, and it got to the point where they literally had to have, I mean, a bunch of different positions, including some positions that were quite literally historically bad, before they went, maybe we should do something. Maybe we should, maybe try isn't the right word, but fill these voids with like actual major leaguers.
Yep.
And not just pretend dress up major leaguers.
Less Kai Toms, less Anthony Alfords, Fowlers, right? Less those guys, more, even though there's not a ton of upside. Like, I get Rich Hill's not going to go out there and compete. I didn't talk about him as the MVP next year. He's not going to be that type of person, right? But
he's going to be here half a year.
Compete. He can perform. He stabilized that rotation. And he actually adds a lot of veteran presence, and he'll be very, very helpful in that sense.
Well, if you remove the people that they signed and throw in trade because of G-Man Choi, but if you remove the additions that they had, this team is phenomenally young and would only be poised to get younger, right? So at some point you need a rudder. You can't just throw out literally all these young guys with absolutely no presence and just go, all right, here you go.
Right.
There does need to be somebody there that's been there before. And I mean, that was what last year. That was Jose Quintana, and then Ben Gamel, Vogelbach, Roberto Perez. I forget because he was there for like a month.
Yeah.
And there's more of that this year. There are more guys that I'm like, okay, these are actual major leaguers that have been around, and some of these guys have actually been on good teams. That's not what we're trying to be right now, but for what they added them for, the purpose that they are going to serve, I do like the additions that they made.
What I want to say to that, even though, as well, so like you speak about Quintana, you speak about Vogelbach, Roberto Perez, and even though those were those guys, right, and I get that, to be honest, neither of them were coming off like productive seasons.
No,
and for some of them, it's been
neither
a while.
of them were.
You know, like, I honestly feel, and it is what it is. You know, like, this isn't my way of harping on the front office or whatever, right? But I feel like they kind of got lucky with the Quintana. I really didn't expect him to be a starter. He's going to be a bullpen guy, and he turned to be a starter, and a good one.
That's just
right.
Dumb.
And he turned that into, you know, quite a nice paycheck from the Mets this year. But regardless, like, Vogelbach had a good season. Perez, of course, didn't, whatever. But like, three guys were coming off of non-productive years where Rich Hill was productive.
Rich Hill was productive. G-Man Choi was productive. Santana was.
This was one of his worst seasons.
Yeah, this was one of his worst seasons.
Productive.
But it still was all right. He wasn't the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. He was playable.
Right. And like, that's what I'm getting at too. Like, even the level of that has raised. It's not like, hey, here's a guy who we think could turn it around. Here's actually a guy who, even if he does what he did last year, it's good enough.
Right.
There's reason to think that Santana could actually improve upon, you know, last year, whatever. But even if he did what he did last year, we're okay with that.
It's not
and the other stuff that these three guys bring in is very valuable. And yes, again, to Ben Gamble, like, he had some seasons in the past, but like, they've never been dudes in that clubhouse. Like, Quintana was a dude with the White Sox. Santana's a dude with the Indians, right? Choi, maybe lesser of a dude, but he was a performer, and the clubhouse loves Choi. Everyone loves Choi. And as we found out,
and everyone loves Santana too. I mean, there was a lot of
Dallas Braden. He loves Choi also. So it's like, I like everything those guys are, but like, that was the bare minimum they could do this year. They just did it. So, I mean, so kudos to actually doing it this time.
Right. The other thing that's been brought up is people have mentioned that the Pirates were looking to add another starter and another position player. They added their other starter. They added Hill. Their other position player, is that going to be an outfielder or an infielder? If they are added, let me add that stip end there.
Before I answer that, let me also answer it in this way. Because last year the outfielders were infielders. So are we saying that it's going to be an outfielder who actually is an outfielder?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it makes sense to attack outfield if there's going to be another guy. I mean, it could be infield. Like, I'm not going to say that just doesn't make any sense, but I think the lack of depth actually is in the outfield. There's a lot of middle infielders. There's a lot of depth coming up, in the minors. Like, that's the new wave. There'll be middle infielders and such. I think with the corners that's coming up, I mean, you already have Santana. Like I think the corners are set. Like, outfield makes sense to me.
I would agree. If it is infield, I feel like it's most likely to be second base. Just a second baseman type guy.
I think they got enough there.
I would agree.
Like Bay, that's what you already have. Cruz is locked at short, right?
Yeah, he's gonna get a full season there.
You're hoping Rodolfo takes that step and says, this is second base and now it's mine. But if not, Bay's already up there, but Bay has the ability to play outfield also. So like he helps them out in that sense, hedge some bets. But like, I think, like Tyler said, like the middle infield to me is just set. And I don't really want to take bats. That's why I was okay with like Newman being gone. I don't really want to take at bats from these guys. I want them to develop. So I don't think middle infield really makes a ton of sense.
I think potentially a backup shortstop could make sense.
But yeah, I feel like they could
like
also
a
go
true
Triolo.
They do have that's also true. I don't know. They go through utility players like a frickin' like Sharman. So I'm sure they'll find someone that can play shortstop and second and third, and then they'll throw him in the outfield for funsies. You also have Marcano around that can't really play shortstop.
Oh God, I forgot Marcano existed.
There. I prefer he didn't. I mean, as a player. But in regard to Connor's original question, I think that if they are going to add a position player, I think it makes sense to add a corner outfielder here.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Just looking around.
Do you think it happens?
At this point, no.
No. Yeah.
I think it may be later, closer to spring training, some of those veteran guys that hang around. Like maybe if a Robbie Grossman hangs around for a while, or someone of that like boring type that had a few good years at one point, and maybe they want to run back the years of the Wandy Rodriguez trade. And
I mean, you know who else is hanging around though, Tyler?
Who's that?
Who, like, I don't know. If Brian Reynolds was traded,
Andrew McCutchen
kind of makes sense.
I kind of forgot about him too.
Comes full circle, and Brian Reynolds gets traded, and now you're down an outfielder.
See, I didn't want to
down a face of a franchise. So I don't know, maybe bring in a former face of the franchise and like Andrew McCutchen, and then he becomes that dude who also has some veteran presence and like helps this team turn around. And what full circle for him going?
Listen,
I'm gonna stop.
For shits and giggles, they should just go trade for Austin.
If Brian Reynolds gets traded, like that just makes all the sense in the world to bring in Andrew McCutchen. I'm sorry. I think as a PR, like what a way to soften.
I didn't want to be the guy to bring it up, but yeah.
Then to bring in Andrew McCutchen, and he's still hanging around. So I don't know.
My hesitation and my fear with Andrew is I am really scared by some of the lines he put up at some points last year. Like really scared that this is going to be the year it's like, okay, you're done. Because he's always been somewhat of a streaky hitter. And as he's aged, that's kind of manifested where there were some pretty decent stretches of time last year where he was not playable. He just wasn't.
I mean, you have a point. That's probably why
can't
we
disappear in the playoffs if you
Miguel
don't make the
Andujar
playoffs
instead.
That's what scares me. Listen, I would be up and over the moon about it. Okay, I'd be 100% for it. Let's do it. But in terms of if you want to make an argument as to why they shouldn't, is that I can't tell you with 100% certainty that he's going to be that much better than Connor Joe.
That's fair.
I think he will be.
That.
I think he will be. But I think the reality is that Andrew McCutchen is no longer a starter on a good team. On a truly good team, he doesn't start. Unless he has some sort of revival this year, that's not really in the cards for him moving forward.
Well, Connor, it's a good thing this is not a good team, so he would start here.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not gonna. I know for a fact Andrew McCutchen is not the same Andrew McCutchen. Now his speed is back. I'll give him that.
No shit, DiNardo.
His legs are back. And
yeah,
regardless,
I was looking at that sprint speed stat that I saw that he had like the most 30 miles per hour sprint speeds on the entire Brewers team last year.
Yeah,
and that kind of surprised me.
He's got a good offseason workout training going on. But anyways, oh well, goodbye, Tyler. But anyways, I look at it as, I mean, what's remaining out there? Anyways, like Tyler said, if it's Robbie Grossman, get Kutch's ass in here.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like at least do the PR move for once. Like, look at the fans. Like, dude, that just, again, makes sense. If you're trading Reynolds, and I'm not here advocating trade Reynolds so we can bring in Kutch. That's not what I'm going at. But I'm saying if that trade happens and Kutch is still out there, like, it just makes too much sense. You need an outfielder anyways. I'm not saying he's going to be the same guy he was by any means, right? I'm not saying he's going to be that much of an upgrade to Connor Joe, but he's a guy, and he can provide this team what we're talking about, that leadership or whatever. I think he'd be great for the clubhouse, but also it's Andrew freaking McCutchen. Like, give the fans a W somewhere. If you're sitting here thinking, like, should we get Robbie Grossman or should we get Andrew McCutchen? Get Andrew McCutchen.
I would agree with that. Kanan Smith and Jigba is probably better than I like Smith and Jigba. I think the power needs to play a little bit more.
I think he is honestly. I am probably the most confident in him of all their outfield prospects.
I would agree.
More than Jack Sawinski, if you include him as well. I prefer CSN over him.
I'm not sure if I would go that far as to make a statement like that, but I
am.
I really, really like his on-base skills.
And I really don't like what Jack Sawinski showed after his hot stretch.
I would agree with that.
Also, the fact that he cannot hit outside of PNC Park is very concerning. Like, but literally cannot.
He's a god at PNC Park, so like I'm just so confused.
We need to find a player to.
So it's CSN Sawinski platoon away and home.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed that CSN got hurt last year because I was excited to see him.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I feel like all of us on here are higher on CSN
right?
than like most people. Because I was really excited to see him last year too. And I'm the same. Like I'm very disappointed he didn't get to really show us what he has. And I think all of us, like, I don't want to say down, because I just think that there was a few people who like really, really hyped up Sawinski to make him like where he was in their minds. I think a lot of us felt like Sawinski probably is more of a fourth outfielder, but he impressed all of us at the beginning of the year. So maybe he actually is a real guy. So I'm not ready to say CSN is better than Sawinski yet, just because I've seen some things that Sawinski's done. There's some intrigue there, and I still want to see more of him.
Sawinski turned it around a little bit back towards the end of the year when he got called back up. I think it wasn't like the abysmal stretch that he had.
Correct me if I'm wrong though. Like, he had no power though, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. In September, I kind of tuned the team out.
That's
my
fair.
brain shut off.
I mean, me too.
They were just on so I could do a post-game show.
So I'm bringing up since his return, August 29th, he slugged 375.
Yeah, so no. It was
so like, yeah, he had 5 home runs, but only 2 doubles. Like, the home runs that was it. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, I don't know. It wasn't as bad, but it still wasn't pretty.
He was still showcasing some of the things that would concern you. It's just that it wasn't quite like the 0 for 29 or whatever it was. And because that's something like that streak isn't really bad. There's a point where bad streaks become unsustainable.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like, that's why he's so intriguing, because it's just like what he does away doesn't happen. Like he was what? I mean, I did the numbers like at one point. It was like what, the 4th worst hitter in baseball. Yeah. Like he had like away, but he was almost as good as Aaron Judge at home. Like he's like the top 10 hitter in all of baseball was just home splits. So again, it's like, so which one are you? Like you said, like the bad can't be sustainable, but then this good can't be that sustainable either.
Exactly.
So like, does it still mesh? He still ends up being this person, just like
still about an average player,
right? He just averages out the homes and away splits a little bit, but he's still like like you're saying, like an average player, which is okay. It's okay to be that. That is ultimately what I think a lot of us here thought he was going to be.
Yeah, if the outcome for Jack Suwinski is a slightly above replacement level player with power, that's a good outcome. Because another thing that really, I think that genuinely surprised me about him, that I'm actually feeling pretty good about, is his defense. I did not hear anything about Jack Suwinski being, a good defensive outfielder. He came up and he was a good defensive outfielder. Was he the greatest thing you've ever seen? No. But he outperformed what a lot of people thought of him.
For sure.
In that area. I don't have any doubts about him. Looping back to Smith and Jigba a little bit, that's the one thing that concerns me, is just like there's no power there for whatever reason. Because when he came up, it was the first time I had really seen any like actual good footage of him. I had really just been box score watching up to that point. And I was like, this dude's jacked. like why on earth does this guy have like absolutely zero power? And then we didn't get enough, and then we didn't get to see enough of him for that to really be answered of why is there no power. I'm sure people who have watched him more could give you an answer there, but I'm not one of them. So
I would say he reminds me, he's a baseball version of Maurice Jones-Drew. He really is. Dude's thick, but jacked. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Going back, I'm like, I am intrigued. I want to see him get a shot this year and show what he has. But regardless, I still don't look at him as like, there's a lot of depth in the outfield. There's no like good, reliable, like this guy's a starter. Like I'm still not sure if he's going to be a starter, just like Suwinski as well. So that's where I'm at. There's a lot of depth in the outfield, but it's not like a whole lot of good prospects and talent that's there.
Yeah, which I mean, we covered that a little bit earlier, where it's like if we move off Reynolds, if he's moved, who's out there? Who's the above average player out there?
Real quick, Anthony asked if I changed my opinion of the Frazier trade. I'm going to be honest, I don't really remember my opinion of the Frazier trade at this point. It was probably that it stunk. So I'm okay with the trade at this point. I still don't like Marcano. I don't think he's a major leaguer. But Suwinski has made that trade somewhat worth it. So, and Frazier turned back into a pumpkin.
Who was
that
again?
one? That one's kind of similar to the Stallings trade.
Back to my Stallings argument. Yeah.
I say a lot of things. I don't remember all my opinions.
I think it's fine, because in the middle of that stretch that Frazier was having, did anybody really have a ton of faith that it was really that replicable? Like, there were a lot of indicators that it wasn't.
Pretty much everyone that has never seen a Fangraphs page. Modern baseball watchers kind of could tell.
Yeah. I guess that's why, like, to say that didn't impact his value at all would be it wouldn't be true. I think executives know.
To answer Anthony's question,
that's why I think
I think a lot of us had the same
viewpoint. Salesman.
The reason we didn't like the trade is because of Marcano. Like, none of us
specifically Marcano.
Really, no, I recall what I said at the time, and I said I don't see it, But if that's the guy you've been after, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, right? Because we heard Charrington was trying to get him in the Musgrove trade. So he ended up getting him in the Adam Frazier trade. So it's like, I mean, I'm not a GM. I'm not in baseball. That's the guy you really want. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Show me it. But the reason I didn't like it is because I don't believe in Marcano. And at the time, Sawinski, it's like, well, to me, he was the most intriguing part of it. But ultimately, I felt like he's probably a fourth outfielder. So the thing is, it kind of stands today where we thought it was. So the answer still is like, no, I don't like it because I don't know why you were going after Marcano. That just confuses the hell out of me. What do you see in Marcano? I don't see anything.
It all goes.
I see Cole, Tucker, Light. Day one, it's Cole, Tucker, Light, and that's what he is. And where's Cole Tucker today? Actually, I forget. Is it Colorado? He signed a minor league deal with Colorado. Is that what it was?
I don't know.
He's not going to see baseball again. So thank God he's got Vanessa, because he's not going to see a diamond in the major leagues again.
Damn.
He might need to buy one, but he's not going to see one in the major leagues. By the way, I'd definitely be buying a diamond soon. Lock that up, Cole.
Also not a Marcano guy, as we can tell.
I'm just saying.
Remember when Jim was a big Marcano guy for like 3 weeks?
Yeah,
that was weird.
That's why everyone hates Jim.
Yeah, he's a flip-flopper.
We did say we were going to have an hour-long segment about why everybody hates Jim.
Yeah, that's going to be next Wednesday.
Oh, that's next. Oh, come on. I wanted to be a part of that. That's unfortunate.
Well, yeah.
I have Jim just as many reasons to hate Jim as anybody else.
Cool. All right, we done here?
So one more thing about the Stallings trade.
We're not done here.
No, I'm done. I'm not.
All right. Connor, any last words? Give people a reason to vote for you.
Oh, this is a voting thing?
I don't know. We're just making it up as we go.
I would hope not. The way I act on Twitter, people are not voting for me. This is the first time I'm hearing this, I think.
Yeah, call 1-800 North Shore 9.
Oh, no,
dial 3 for Connor.
It's actually over for me. That's crazy.
Jover.
It's Jover. I mean, have you seen some of the things I've been tweeting the past couple of weeks? People have not been a fan of mine. I've made some tweets that people have gotten pretty upset at.
Well,
there's one in
particular. They are now.
Oopsies. See, I should have just waited till after this to make people mad. I'd be like Jim.
Yep. Man, I'm gonna become likable on this show because everyone else is so hateable, and I'm usually the hateable one. What a time to be alive, baby.
I will say, if they should make hating on things less fun. If you want me to be less hateable as a person, then give me an incentive not to be hateable.
And on that note, I think that wraps up NS9IDOL.
All right. Well, it was fun having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Hopefully
it was good.
Hopefully you ask me back on.
Pass.
We're not. We won't.
Pass.
All
right.
Your
Peace
topic
out,
was
Scouts.
terrible. Peace.
Bye-bye.